Greetings and welcome to BizBuzz with Heather and Sean. I am Sean Bihari, a business transformation consultant, and with me is my colleague Heather Smokam, who is a chief of staff and people operations person. Today we wanted to chat with you a little bit about project management and really wanted to maybe look at what is considered to be good project management and what maybe isn't good project management. So Heather, if I had to ask you what you consider good project management to be, how would you describe that?
So it's interesting. In a few of our previous podcasts, we talked about planning, right? Project management to me is really someone owning the plan of the project. But first off, helping lay out the project, right? So I'm managing this project. So what is everything that I need to be in place in order for us to achieve our goal? So from there, I think, well, I need to have a plan in place. So who's doing what? What do the timelines look like? What resources do we need? So all of these things that are involved in getting the outcome, what do we need to have in place to be successful? So to me, that's what managing a project looks like. But you're also giving the leadership piece too, right? You're the leader. You might not be the direct manager of the folks that you are leading through this project. So you need to be able to lead from any chair. So being able to lead, guide, advise folks to help them in their roles in achieving the project outcome.
Yeah, I think those are all very, very pertinent and accurate descriptions of what project management must include. And I want to say the way that I look at it is slightly differently. It does include all of those things. So don't get me wrong. I don't want to take away from that. But when I think of project management, I think about somebody or the coordination of a set of diverse individuals, resources, skills, tools, etc., to bring to life a vision of a product or service that a business wants to deliver, implement, upgrade, however you want to face it. Think of it like the conductor in an orchestra. The end goal is to actually make harmonious, beautiful music. And the job of the conductor is to understand how the music comes together, what it should sound like, so the vision of what that feeling that you should emote when someone listens to it, and which instruments, which players, which actors need to come into effect and at what times. So when to actually bring things together. So going back to yours is, who are the resources? What does that schedule need to look like? When do things need to line up to run in parallel, in sequence, so that you create that melodious harmonic sound, so that at the end of the day, people leave feeling as though, oh my God, that was the best thing. So it's a bit of an analogy, a bit of a stretch. People might think I'm crazy, but I think project management, good project management, is when you're able to create that magic by employing all of those skills and tools from the individuals who are involved in contributing to the success of that project.
Nice. I like that. And you can tell you've been doing this for a long time, Sean, because your explanation was so much better than mine. But I like that you're talking about using the right tools too. And to me, this sounds terrible, but a person is a tool sometimes, right? Because in a sense, they need to be the right person for that role and responsibility. So you are working with leaders as a project management to identify that right tool, asset, person, whatever you want to call it, to participate in that project, because you want to be ensuring you're setting everyone up for success. So finding the right people to support you in the execution. So I love that point.
Exactly.
Nice.
Okay, Heather. So we just talked about what good project management looks like. I think we should probably then dive into is what could lead to the downfall of a project.
So for me, I think I'm a process person, right? So I like processes because to me, that means people know what they're responsible for doing, right? So in a process, Sean, you do A, Heather does B, Tommy does C. So for me, if the people who are participating and supporting, like we talked about in the last question, if they are not clear on what their roles and responsibilities are within the project, that's going to be a huge downfall. And because you may have people stepping on each other's toes, right? You may have people not able to execute what they need to execute because they don't have clarity on what the expected outcome is. Or maybe there's a way they have to achieve that outcome. And if you're not clear and articulate in what they need to be doing, that could be a huge, impact. I think the other thing is, looking at your timelines and ensuring you have allowed yourself enough time to where necessary, test and try and execute. Because if you're not giving yourself enough time for reviews and trials and errors and fixes, you're going to try to pull the trigger too quickly and in turn, maybe not achieve the greatness that the orchestra could bring because not everybody was practiced enough to achieve the outcome, if that makes sense. So those would be two big things for me, not every downfall, but two big things I think, a project could fall down.
Yeah, and I think those are two very important things. So for folks who missed one of our podcast episodes, we did do one on roles and responsibilities. And Heather, I think you are very correct in saying many times there is confusion in terms of people not being clear in terms of what the expectations are of them. And sometimes too many people are trying to do the same thing, so we're all tripping over each other's toes. So I think that's an excellent example that you raised. The other one is also very pertinent because a lot of times leaders and sponsors want us to go faster. And going faster can have advantages. It could also bring downfalls, to your point. And one of them being in using the example that you just did, which is, well, if you haven't practiced enough, it's not going to sound good if you don't have enough time. And so as project managers, as project leaders, as sponsors even, I think we need to make sure that we give the team enough time to ensure that things can be done in a well thought out, methodical manner. Because if we don't, we risk making mistakes, missing things, and then we don't get the desired result, right? And what's supposed to sound like a musical symphony sounds like maybe a bunch of dogs barking, in the neighborhood.
That'd be my example too. I think too, and it depends on the size of the project. It depends on the organization, like all of these things, right? Like I support a lot of small businesses and, entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, where they have the ability to execute a little bit faster, right? They can maybe fall down a little quicker and get up a little faster, where when we're talking about huge organizations, that's a different story because there are so many inputs and impacts that you can't just be agile and change as quickly as you can more so in a smaller organization. So smaller, there's a little more room for error, not that you want to make them, but again, you have to be agile in your approach depending on what the size of the project is.
And I'm so glad you said that word agile, because even in a large organization, I've found sometimes what people do is we pad so much buffer, right? Each group ends up padding so much buffer that you end up wasting time.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So agility goes both ways. There's a risk either way you take it. The one thing that you started off going into, I'm a process person when you first started this, is I find many project managers nowadays, they're very much process oriented. I check the box of I have a schedule, I create an issue log, I do this, I do that, I do the other. And what is missing is that critical business thinking. Say, we're going down this path. This is the scope that's been defined. This is the timeline. These are the people, et cetera, et cetera. We bump into an issue and they're not able to help the team navigate the issue with the right business conversations and thought leadership. And so they're so reliant on process that at the end of the day, we don't get the success we need. And what I want to talk about a little bit, I'm going to go off on a little bit of a rant, is in project management, we talk about the triple constraints: scope, time, and cost. In business, it is important for us to also balance these three things. And that is the customer and the user experience, operational efficiency, because I'm working on a regulatory project right now for a client, what I call the regulatory environment. So in order to deliver a specific service that will enhance and grow our business and allow us to achieve our business objectives, project managers put a lens of scope, time, and cost. And the business actually needs to put a lens on, in many cases they do, put the lens on how is this going to create the right experience for my clients and my users, frontline, back office, whatever. How is this going to make me more efficient and generate more revenue? So the efficiency piece of it.
Yeah.
And then the third layer is, how do I need to do this in the context of the regulatory environment that I need to operate in? And in North America, almost any industry has certain regulations we need to abide by. And I think what ends up happening is project managers focus on their three constraints. The business has three different constraints. They also have the other three, the project management ones. But I think more and more we need to make that connection that all six of these, if you want to call it, we need to work together to deliver the vision, to create that symphony of music, that harmonious melody. So that's my little rant. I've been actually pushing those latter three, the last project that I've been on, and say, these are important things, but we need to make sure we talk about customer and user experience. We talk about our operational efficiencies, and we talk about our regulatory environment and create the right balance of those. Right?
Interesting. Yeah. Because it's funny, like I would always think when I'm doing a project, to me, and I guess this is my people piece coming out, that the end user experience is always, I don't want to say the most important, but it really is, because they're the ones who are giving you the revenue to ensure you have the costs, to be able to do this. So I take it from even a training perspective. When I'm training people, it's the end user experience. Or, somebody's clicking on a website, how many times are they clicking to get to where they need to be? When we, worked in a bank, it was, what is their experience on the app? All these kinds of things. They're the people paying the bills. So if you screw up their experience, that's going to impact your revenue generation. So to me, it should be like number one for everybody. But I get it. Project managers are so focused on checking a box and making sure things get done that we need to have that, whole view of everything going on. And I need to go back to processes for 2 seconds, because processes are not to constrain us into a box unless a regulatory requirement. But a process to me is a framework to say, I have to think less because I know this process is taken care of. So it allows quicker decision making. It allows for, the agility in other areas because things are taken care of and who's responsible for it. So that's where I would go on my process tangent. But I think this, there can be many downfalls. And I love your 6. Let's keep that in mind for anybody who's managing projects. I love that.
Thank you. I love that you love those 6.
Yeah.
I'll give you a little joke, because listen, my experience and my knowledge has evolved with time.
Yeah.
And I remember working in a group, marketing sponsorship group. And one of the leaders there kept saying to me, Sean, your love of process is killing us. It is slowing us down. It needs to be a framework. Yeah. But if that becomes the end all and the be all, it ends up just being a bit of a handcuff that prevents that agility that we've talked about. So it's finding balance.
Yeah. And then things become less fun, to be honest. Like, let's keep it, fun and flexible and empower people to own what they want to do. So providing a framework or a guideline versus a strict, process, unless again, it is, you need to execute this task A, B, and C, but there's room for, I just wrote an article on this actually around like processes, guidelines, frameworks, like how you can use them different, even a policy, right? How are they all different? Because they all do vary, and what works for your business or in that situation.
100%.
Yeah. All right, John. So you just shared with us the 6 things that you really should focus on in a project. Let me see if I can remember them all. So there's time, scope, time, cost, end user experience,
Operational efficiency.
operational efficiency, which I should think about, operational efficiency, and
Regulatory compliance.
regulatory compliance. Thank you. So those 6 things. So that's great insights from an experienced project management leader. If there is one thing that you could share with someone, managing small, large projects, someone like me, what would you share based on your experience?
So what I would share is actually something you actually just talked about, and that is starting with the end user experience first. Or starting, let's call it, with the vision first. So many project managers, when we take on a project, we start with, well, what is my scope? What is my time? What is my cost? And let's write requirements. What I find sometimes is missing is that connection, the ability to make sure everybody shares the same vision of what that user journey, that user experience should look like, will look like. How does that work for all the different stakeholders, be it front lines, back office, mid office, whoever? What technologies we may need to employ? What regulatory constraints do we need to be concerned about? All of those things, if we're able to create that vision and that experience, then I think it really drives the development of a product or service that, one, delivers the vision that the business is looking for. And two, hopefully, we can do that within the constraints of time, cost, and scope.
Yeah. No, I love that. And that's not like anything, but you think of what is the goal? Like, what do we want to achieve and how are we going to get there? Right. So to me, that makes absolute sense, right? And user experiences. The goal is to have an app that works like A, B, and C. Okay. How are we going to get there? Project manager, let's work together to figure it out.
Exactly.
Love it.
Exactly.
Awesome. Great. Well, thank you, Sean. This one has been very insightful, and I love those 6 suggested focuses, and I'm going to remember them next time. So thank you for that. You can catch Sean and I on LinkedIn. So Sean Bahari and Heather Smokum, catch us on LinkedIn. You can catch me as well at my website, www.lotusoms.com. And we will see you next time.
See you next time, folks. Keep the buzz going.
Awesome. Keep the buzz going.